Without further ado, I'm here to talk to you about his experience with the pitch, and I'm sure many other things, is my old hillbilly friend.
Thank you. That's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. That story you just told you was like the first part of my speech, so we didn't talk about that. So I'll move on to the pitch. No, it's perfect because I mean, and if you had read what I'd written about it, it would be exactly the same thing. The only thing I will say is when I do go home to East Tennessee, my mother says, "Isn't it a shame you've lost your accent?" So you can only imagine what it used to be like. Travel and other things have smoothed it out a little bit. For me, this is really like coming home in a way. As Steve said, my first partner in the business was Bill Morgan, and we had an office and a house over on Cherokee. I don't remember if it's Cherokee Street or Avenue or Boulevard, but Cherokee. And I spent a lot of time in Baton Rouge and had a lot of friends here and spent a lot of time in this restaurant and others. And so this is really coming home for me. I love Baton Rouge, and I've always enjoyed the people here and the food and the culture a great deal. So I did go back to Nashville after that campaign in '91 and started our company. And over time we did about 500 political campaigns in 47 states and about 100 corporate, not-for-profit, and institutional campaigns for different companies and institutions. And then one day, late November, I think, found myself on the phone with a producer from Los Angeles asking me if we wanted to participate in the pitch on AMC, which is the home of Breaking Bad and Mad Men and Walking Dead. And so it wasn't an immediate yes. I mean, if, as any of you might think, somebody wants you to appear on a reality TV show. It is a known fact that on a lot of these shows in the reality world, they literally look for people who have a condition known as narcissistic personality disorder. I'm not making that up. And if you take narcissistic personality disorder, put stress on them and a little alcohol, then that's reality television. That's what you get. It's a pretty ugly thing. But after talking to the producers, and I mean, they reassured me that what they wanted to do was capture the creative process and honor the creative process. And they really did keep that promise throughout within the context and the confines of doing a 1-hour TV show. So So we said yes. We signed about 50 legal documents. We didn't get paid. That's one question somebody's going to ask me later. We didn't get paid, and we had to bear all the expenses of a pitch, which all of you, I'm sure, have had that experience, trying to decide how much do you spend, do you do storyboards, do you shoot a spot. And one of the documents we signed, I thought it was interesting. We were prohibited from saying we were the real Mad Men or in any way comparing ourselves to Don Draper. That was one of the papers we had to sign. I don't know, the Mad Men people and the pitch people apparently don't get along over at the AMC. And so on a cold day in February of this year, the crew showed up at our office and they started shooting. They did interviews with me and my business partner John Rowley and our staff, and they shot B-roll of us moving around. We didn't know the name of the company we were going to be competing for until maybe 3 or 4 days before the shooting started. We had very little time to do a little research. I was actually in China when I found that out, and so I get back and like 2 days later we're actually starting the program. The company that produces the pitch is based in England. It's a company called All Three Productions. The head of their production came out of the BBC, and I didn't realize this, but a lot of reality shows and regular TV shows for that matter are first hits in England and then they bring them over here. I mean, we're all familiar with House of Cards on Netflix. That was a big hit in England. The Office is probably the most well-known one, huge hit in England, and they brought it over here. So England is like a big test market for the U.S. It's a smaller country, it's English-speaking, and when things are hits there, they sort of migrate over here. So the company we find out we're pitching is College Hunks Hauling Junk. And do you have one here? Do you know? Do you have a franchise here? All right, so College Hunks is a company, two guys started it when they were in college. They borrowed a truck from their mother who owned a furniture store. They painted the side of the truck, College Hunks Hauling Junk. And they've built that into a company that they've got, depending on what day you talk to them, they've got either 45 or 50 franchises across the country. And they franchise this concept. They come to your house and they take away things that you don't want. It's kind of got a green sustainability aspect to it. They give the stuff to Goodwill, they recycle it. The last thing they do is take it to the dump. And but they also have a moving company called College Hunks Moving. And so our charge was to the moving company hadn't grown like the junk hauling company had. And so our charge was to attack that. So the design of the show, the pitch, how many of you have seen the pitch? Do you actually watch it and know about it? Okay, so every week, you have two agencies, they compete for a client, you go for a brief, then they send two film crews with the agencies back to your shop where they watch you put your pitch together, your ideas, your designs. Then you come back and you pitch the company, and then somebody wins and somebody loses. That's what the show is every week. And they try to get into the personalities of the people a little bit. One reason they selected us, they wanted to come to Nashville, so check, we were in Nashville. They wanted a small agency, check, we're a small agency. They wanted a non-traditional agency, at least from their point of view, somebody that they were fascinated by the political stuff and the fact that we started in the political world and migrated into the corporate advertising world. And then they said they wanted big personalities, and for good or ill, my partner and I fit that model. And they interviewed us by Skype several times, and then at the end of the day we got selected. So we first met the agency we were competing with. Is an agency called Breen Smith out of Atlanta. We met them at the brief. We got briefed together. We're in this tiny little room at College Hunks in Nashville. That was kind of a home court advantage for us. And these guys were sort of refugees from big agencies, but they had started their own agency in Atlanta. And that's where we also met Omar Solomon and Nick Friedman, who are the owners, the original College Hunks. And the brief was very informal and frankly verged on, well, it was very informal. We were sitting on a couch and those guys just came in and I'm trying to take notes. And I'm sure if you're all in the advertising business, you've all sat through briefs like this. If you haven't yet, you will. We want to be the Apple of the moving business. We want to rebrand. We want to be global, and we want to have a global brand, on and on and on. So, but then I was shocked that there was no research, none. They were going to start to rebrand their business or consider rebranding their business. They didn't have a survey. They didn't have a focus group. They hadn't talked to their mamas, nothing. They had no research. So I was so stunned by that. We immediately went back to the office and we started crashing on the ideas we had, and we all sort of split up and brought our ideas back together and back and forth. Started our process, but it didn't feel right to me that we didn't have research. So what we did, we did our own focus groups for College Hunks. We printed up flyers. We sent myself and all of our staff, we went out in Midtown Nashville, and we went into office buildings and banks and insurance agencies, and we said, if you'll come and do a 45-minute focus group today during your lunch hour, either 11 or 12 or 1, and then I think we had one at 2, we'll pay you $50 cash. You'll give us 45 minutes of your time. And we had about 50 women show up. We had those 4 focus groups. We videotaped those. I moderated them. And we showed them, we actually tested the brand they were using, and we showed them our different ideas, and that helped us come to a conclusion about what we were going to recommend, doing that research. So the day of the pitch comes, and our show was, as it turns out, was different than everybody else's. They made us pitch with the other agency in the room. And then we had to sit there while they pitched. Now, I come out of the world of politics. This didn't faze us. I just treated it like a debate. I mean, but except I wanted to go after the guys. You know, I wanted to go after their ideas. We weren't allowed to do that. But, and I think maybe the one quibble I have with the show, and I suspect this is the case with every one of the shows, they don't really have time to explain what we pitched. And what ended up on the air was kind of half of our pitch. What we ended up saying was, don't rebrand college hunks. It works. And it works for junk hauling. Rebrand the moving company, co-brand it, maintain your brand equity that you've earned through college hunks, which is an epic, brilliant idea that you built a company around. But then we showed them the research, and we said, here's why your moving business isn't growing. You are being DQ'd, disqualified at the Google search level. Because most women, and women are their core decision makers, people that they told us that from their experience, women are making the decision about who's going to be doing their moves. Women were fine with college hunks hauling their junk. Take away an old mattress, a broken table, whatever. They did not want college hunks moving granny's china. They were very uncomfortable with that. One of the women in the focus group said, I would be so embarrassed to have that truck in my driveway, and I don't know how I would explain to my husband that I had hired hunks. I mean, she was just positively indignant. And then we showed them, you know, based on a focus group, which is qualitative, not quantitative, but I explained to them, look, I think you're losing 30% of your business, 30% of your opportunities to bid on business at the Google search level. Everybody goes to a Google search or Bing search. Everybody then gets 2 or 3 prices. You're getting DQ'd right there on the moving. So that's why your brand isn't growing. So that was our pitch. Co-brand, keep college hunks, maintain that equity, and then move on to heroic moving, which is the idea we came up with them for their Apple-like global brand. And the conceit there, the creative impulse behind that, 2 things. One, in Greek mythology, a hero is the children of the gods. And we all know heroic, what it means in the context of a military, but it has a broader meaning. And around the world, there's a word for hero and heroic in every language. So it requires no explanation. Now, it's a little different than, I remember when Exxon branded, their mandate the way they came up with the name Exxon, they wanted a word that meant nothing in any language. They wanted a completely unique word that had no meaning anywhere. They wanted to create what Exxon meant. But I thought we all decided that heroic moving, and that's what we pitched. Also, if you want to be a global brand in the moving world, junk hauling is a uniquely American, if not Western, thing. I've been all over the world. They don't have junk haulers in China and India, places like that. It's the Western world that creates this excess that has to be hauled away. The rest of the world, they use that stuff. They burn it, eat it, give it to their neighbors, you know, whatever. But they don't have somebody come in a truck and haul it away. So there'll never be a global junk hauling business. So we settled on heroic moving. That's what we put forward in the pitch. It's So the pitch, I thought, went smoothly. I've never walked out of a pitch that I didn't feel like I jacked a home run right out of the park, so I'm not always the best person to look at when to say, how'd the pitch go? Went awesome. They always go awesome. And as it turns out, what we know now is Omar, who's the guy that wrote the business plan for the business and sort of the intellectual side of their business, he was for us, and Nick was sort of undecided between us and the other agency's idea they put forward was called Hunks and a Dolly. Kind of a play on words of the dolly that you used to move people with. And instead of getting rid of the kind of cartoony logo they had of the hunk, they wanted to add a dolly logo, which was like a 50s woman. And their whole idea was, let's harken back to the 1950s when America was a simpler place, and And as they were making their pitch, I wrote this down on a piece of paper and I slid it over to my business partner and I said, the 50s weren't great for everybody, for starters. And I didn't like the idea, but that's to be expected. I was competing with these guys. So Omar was for our idea. They brought a third person to the pitch, which really changed the dynamic. They brought this guy, Stephen Bienko from New Jersey, who owns about a third of their franchises. And what we found out later, after we left the room and they're discussing this, they had a knockdown drag out with him about, well, who's going to pay for this rebranding? This is going to mess up our business. We've got all these franchises. So it wasn't about the creative anymore. It became about the expense of rebranding, the risk of rebranding. We don't want change. We're making money just fine. And so we lost. We lost on the show. And we actually did the pitch in Nashville, and we went back to my office. It's the only time that I said, no, you can't bring cameras in here. I said, it's just not fair to my staff. I'm not going to walk in there and let you film them all reacting. And I was so proud of them when I went back and told them, look, we made a good pitch. I'm proud of our effort, but we lost. And there were no tears. There were no anger. There were some incredibly inappropriate things said about Dolly, mostly by the women on my staff, because they brought in this real person to be Dolly in their pitch. And but coming out of the world of politics, one thing that's a little different about politics than the normal day-to-day agency business, we win and lose in public. We win and lose on the front page of the newspaper and on TV. We know how to take a punch. And so John and I took the punch on live TV. My staff took the punch privately. And we were unbowed in spite of the fact that we lost. The coda, 2 days later, I get an email from Omar. We've made a terrible mistake. We hate Hunks and a Dolly. We want to go with heroic, so we want to hire you guys, and we want to work with your agency. We like the research, we like your passion, we like the creative, etc. So we ended up getting hired by College Hunks. So then we circle back to the AMC people, and Omar said, I want them to reshoot the ending. I said, Omar, trust me, not going to happen. They spent 13 days shooting with 2 different crews. They're not going to reshoot the ending because you fumbled it at the end. But I said, so we'll just ask them to put a card up at the end. Just fade to black, put a card up and say, after the show was over, College Hunks hired Fletcher Riley. They didn't want to do that. They said, this is a reality show about what happened in these 13 days. And I said, whatever, okay, artistic, creative differences. And so I said, fine. Well, and I told Omar, I said, I don't really care. I mean, it's a show, it's a TV show, and so it's not the end of our world that it doesn't get shown on TV. I would rather have the business than win the show. So we have the business now. In real life, they're just, as Omar says, we're an ADD company. So they're just, working with them in real life is just like it was working with them on the show. We develop plans for them based on what they ask for, and we present them the plans, and they say, "Oh God, we can't do that." So it's not been a great client relationship yet, but I do intend to make them the Apple of global moving. This is that's what I want to accomplish. So this all played out in this part of the story. All played out in Ad Age. I think some of you may have seen the stories. They write stories about the pitch, and they wrote that we got hired, and then Breen Smith came back and said, "Well, we turned the account down because they didn't have enough money." And I thought only politicians did that kind of spin, And so we fired back, and there's kind of a little back and forth in Ad Age, which is only read by people like us. There were a few made-for-TV moments in the thing. I do carry a copy of Sun Tzu's The Art of War with me everywhere I go. But now I have it on my phone. I've got it on my Kindle. It's on my computer. And they wanted me to bring the book in. They filmed me getting a haircut of all things. And I did. I have a copy of the book Sun Tzu. That was a little made-for-TV aspect of it. They were also obsessed. I love dubstep music. And all the young people in here know what that is, and the older people don't. But I'm an old guy, and I think these British producers that just got fascinated. There's this 55-year-old man that blasts dubstep in his car in the morning, and it was one of those. They just did. You know how they have the show commercial break, then they do like a 1-minute look in to try to keep people watching the commercials, and they go back to commercials. That part of it, the dubstep thing, only played in that look away. And I had the most reaction that I've gotten out of that. People all over the world sending me emails and posting it on Instagram, and a record label from New York that handles a lot of big artists wants me to do a web series with them, with me reviewing dubstep. And so we're still talking about it, but what I want to do is, since you mainly listen to it in my car, I just want to mount GoPros in my car. And has anybody seen this Jerry Seinfeld thing, comedians in cars getting coffee? If you haven't seen it, I commend it to you. Basically, every week, Jerry Seinfeld, it's obviously set up a little bit, but he just calls one of his buddy comedians, Chris Rock, David Letterman, and calls them up and says, "Hey, you want to go get some coffee?" And he drives to their house in some old vintage car that he's got. They get in the car. It's all mounted, GoPros all around it. And they drive to a coffee shop, have a cup of coffee, and just talk. And they film the whole thing and cut it together into a show. So I just want to do kind of a shorter version of that with me listening to the dubstep and reviewing the tracks in my car, if it's good pump-up music or not. So I don't know. Stay tuned. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I think the main lesson I'll take away, and I want to leave time for us to have a conversation here at the end. My takeaway from it is this: all the big agencies won't participate in the pitch. And I actually wrote a thing for AMC's website, and I say this to you as an agency if they ever ask you to participate. And I said this to the big agencies: you got nothing to fear. These people genuinely want to document the creative process. I told my staff before they got there, I said, I've watched the previous season of the pitch, I've talked to the producers. If the only way you end up looking like an ass on the pitch is if you are an ass, because you can't hide it. But if you're a decent human and you're just trying to create good work, then they're going to honor that. They're going to make you look good, not make you look bad. Now, they do some little tricky things, like they had us and the other agencies stand silently staring at each other for like a minute. Well, of course, what they did, then they had stuff of me going, and then they cut that in a couple of places. Like I was, mugging during their pitch. I didn't like that, but I understand it, and I'm not that mad about it. But we made some friends. Some of the people on the crew I'm friends with even until today, and I hope I will be for a long time. They're really creative, smart people. They honored the creative process. I think when you watch the show over time, I mean, it does show what we do in our industry. Graphic designers, advertising agencies, photographers. It's, you know, when do you get to be on TV? You know, I mean, so it's like, this is, for our industry, I think it's a good thing. And what I said, my message to the big agencies with, you got nothing to fear. Well, of course, a lot of them are asses, you know. Got to think about that part of it, but maybe you could put your nicer people on TV. And the impact on us as an agency, it's been good, but not great. I mean, nobody's calling you up and saying, hey, we want to hire you because we saw you on the pitch. But there's more people talking to us. We've made more contacts. I was in Washington, D.C. This week. I was walking down the street, guy on a bicycle, stopped his bike, jumped off of it, came over and said, I saw you on the pitch. I thought that was pretty cool. That didn't happen to me. I was in Indianapolis the week before. I was eating in a restaurant. The maitre d', as I'm walking out, he said, did I see you on a TV show? I said, yeah, it was me. And then he spun around to his colleagues and said, I told you it was him. It's only 2 times this happened. But can you, I mean, the power of television, can you imagine, we were on one TV show, 11 o'clock on a Thursday night, on one cable network. We were on one program, and I'm getting recognized by these random people. So, I mean, you know, even though I make television for a living, I'm always amazed at the power of broadcast television, cable television. It's a powerful, powerful medium. So, we competed hard, we took a punch, and we won. And we're political people, and that's how we roll. So, thank you. So, and I'll say this, and then I want to take some questions. The film that Steve mentioned, we made this 30-minute film about David Duke and Edwin Edwards and why people should vote for Edwin. And it was really more like a documentary. We shot video in 7 cities in one day, and I had my staff put that up on our website. So if you're curious about it, I'm going to leave it up there a few days. The production value actually holds up pretty good. It was 1991, so you geek types, you'll see stuff that you will sniff at, but it was 1991, for God's sake. It used to take a room full of computers like this room to make a TV spot. Now you can make it on your laptop. We cut that thing in 3 parts in 2 different suites, and then had to put it all together. So I put it up there. If you're curious about it, you can go look at it. And the other thing I didn't want to do today, I didn't want to show a bunch of spots because it's kind of a show killer. And you can go to my website and you can watch spots to your heart's content. So, and I'd be pleased if you would do that. But I'm putting the Edwin film up there for a few days. So, any questions or anything I didn't cover you were curious about? Yes, sir.
One thing about that show is just how it shows, most part, I would say, how incredibly horrible the clients are. They don't know what they're looking for. Everybody sucks up who's on the deciding team, sucks up to the boss. And if you flatter the client in any way, like putting them in the spot that you want, you know, you absolutely want. It's just the most basic advertising pitch, one-on-one stuff on these national companies, and it's kind of horrible to watch because it's painful that the agencies are put through this stuff.
Yeah.
But being in a room, I mean, being in the brief with the opposing team is pretty bad, but being in the pitch, what was that like?
You know, like I say, I think because it seemed to affect the other guys a lot.
But neither one of you guys knew this?
No, they had no idea and until the day of the pitch, and they kind of sprung it on us. And I was fine with it, but I'm sort of trained not to show any human emotion, especially in kind of a public situation. So I wasn't going to give them the benefit of me going, oh, this is not good. So we just rolled with it. The other side, those boys were weak when they put their cleats on. So they seem to be really affected by it, but they won, you know, in the context of what we did. And I don't disagree with you. We had other ideas that would have been more flattering, but what I made the decision, look, we're going to go big or we're going to go home. We got a big idea here. It's what they asked for. Let's give them the big idea. Let's don't give them some kind of junior JUCO idea. Let's give them the big idea. That's what they've asked for. And it panicked them. Now, if you know, you can kind of revisit that. Maybe you should go do the flattering thing. But I've just never done that. I don't believe in doing it. Somebody hires me. I think I'm pretty good at this in terms of dealing with clients. I'm respectful. I know they're the boss, and they're going to make the decision. But I give them straight data. I give them the research. I give them our creativity. I tell them what's behind it. And then I always tell them, I sleep like a baby either way. Do it or don't do it. I really don't even care. But this is my best advice. This is what you should do. Now, if you want to do something different, then when we walk out this door, we're going to defend that idea. I'm not going to tell you it's a good idea if I think it's not. But I will go execute it, and I'll execute it with passion and vigor, and we'll do that. So we've been able to maintain relationships for a long period of time because of that. And that's just always been my approach. I don't try to think I'm bigger than the client. I acknowledge you're the boss. But I've always admired people that hire people who are smarter than they are, especially in one area or not. And I know more than they know about advertising and branding and marketing and what channel it should be on and all that. So I give them that, but I try to do it in a way that's not very offensive. But I do agree with you. A lot of these pitches are kind of strange, and the client reactions, it's like they don't know what they want. They panic when they get what they've asked for. We don't like it, whatever. So, but I don't know. It's a TV show, you know. It's a TV show. It's like, you know, people in politics hated House of Cards. Well, not all the women sleep around to get stories. Okay, it's a TV show. Just relax, you know.
Does the client agree, sign a document to hire one of the two companies?
No, they don't have to hire either one. And so it's strictly it goes in the category of competition reality shows, which is different than, you know, Housewives of whatever. And yeah, they're not required. They own what you produce when you're doing the show. So anything else you want to know about the pitch? Come on, all these type A's in here. What are y'all doing?
From your time spent back here in Louisiana, what are some memorable stories about the 91 election or anything else?
Well, nothing will ever top spending time with Edwin Edwards. You know, when he first approved that 30-minute show, he said, "Well, just get a studio and turn on the camera, and I'll do the talking." You know, that was his idea, and. But we wrote a script and a concept, what we wanted to do, and put it in front of him, and he liked it, and he approved it. And so I also did Jim Brown's campaign that year, elected him to insurance commissioner. I've done a lot of work around the state, some of it with Steve and some of it not, but we've done a lot of work in New Orleans and in the state legislature, different people. So I love Louisiana, but the culture is fantastic.
I just happened to notice that both of them went to prison. That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't mess with them when they get in office. I do. I'm done after the campaign. So, and you know, one thing in Louisiana I do during campaigns, if I'm in a meeting and somebody is suggesting something bad in a loud voice, I say, "But that would be wrong," you know, just in case anybody's recording it, you know. So like every 15 minutes, I just say, "But that would be wrong." Comes in handy. Yes?
My question is about the pitch. Did you find that you got new clients based on the exposure that you received from the show?
Yeah.
Generate some new business?
Yeah, we're picking up some. I mean, I just signed one yesterday before I got on the plane to come down here. You know, I think one thing it gave us was maybe a little more confidence to go after some of these other things. And, you know, like it or not, in our culture, if you've been on TV, it gives you a certain amount of credibility, and we're trying to leverage that as much as we can. I'll guarantee you the audience, actually we did some analysis on this, our social media, advertising, online, personal marketing effort that we put in around the pitch is 3 to 4 times larger than the audience for the pitch. So we've effectively, I think, leveraged it, and I'm not talking about trying to get likes on Facebook. I'm talking about putting your name in front of people, raising your hand, saying we'd like to do business with you, and we're not going to stop that. It's working. People react to it. So these guys must be credible. They were on TV. So, yes.
Did you get any PR pickup on your stories and business publications so that all the small business pubs that would have a chance to tell it from the other side?
It was interesting. We've gotten some of that, but not a lot. The Nashville media really didn't pay much attention to it. We gave them a chance to, but we're really well known there. So
Even like Entrepreneur Magazine?
not that much. Mainly Ad Age. They covered it like it was a football game. They did pre-stories and then after and then the back and forth. I mean, that's kind of their thing. And generally they have a sort of a negative tone about the pitch in Ad Age because I think their ethos comes from the big agencies and the big agencies looking down their nose, and so you can feel that in most of the coverage in that Ad Age. Well, you guys, Steve and I will be in the bar eating gumbo. And if anybody wants to stay and chat more, I'd be delighted to do that. I really do appreciate your inviting me here. I've looked forward to this. I was glad to be here. And if they ever call you and say, do you want to be on the pitch, I would advise you to say yes. It was a good experience for us. Thank you. 1 o'clock.
All right, thanks so much, Bill.
Good job.
And we'll see you guys next week at the media shower. Thanks for coming.